Oh, fun.
Okay, go for a take.
Woo.
Welcome back to another episode of Going for a Take. And in today's episode, we're joined with Ollie Hurst.
Hello, Ollie.
Hello.
How are you?
Sorry, Oliver Hurst.
Oliver,
Sorry, yeah,
official.
Oliver.
On a professional basis.
Yes.
Ollie to my friends, so it's Oliver to you guys.
Wow.
Sorry.
Did you say none of us are?
Yeah, well, no, you're all right. You're all right.
Oh.
In fact, no,
Wow,
you're all right.
We've spoken on Instagram before.
Yeah, well, your problem, Ollie, is that it's Olly, which is
Spelt correct.
No.
Like, no, because your full name is... Sorry, I need to drop the accent. Your full name is... anyway.
Right.
We should probably move on.
Let's start the episode.
Okay,
With your normal introduction.
Yeah, so those of you that don't know, Ollie, you won't have seen Ollie before. He operates behind the camera or behind the stage most of the time. But he is an award-winning director, Manchester born and bred, or Bolton born and bred. Important technicality.
Very
I'm
important.
sorry.
Very, very
Greater
important.
Manchester.
Yeah.
He's carved out a career that focuses on telling stories, exploring memory, grief, and human relationships with time. He's the artistic director of Red Brick Theatre and is expanding his repertoire. Most recently working on The Seagull in London, starring Cate Blanchett. And you assistant directed, didn't you, on that?
Yeah, assisted.
With, what's his name? Thomas Ostermeier.
Thomas Ostermeier, yeah.
Yep. And you're currently rehearsing with our very own Matthew Kahn on MOJO by Jez Butterworth at the moment.
You directed assistant director Cate Blanchett and Tom Burke and everyone. You went, you know who I want to direct next?
Matthew Kahn.
You know what's the only step up?
It's the logical step in your
Yeah,
career.
you were next on the hit list.
It
You were
makes
next on the hit
complete
list.
sense.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm
How's
good.
it going?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Yeah,
No problem.
excited to have a bit of a chinwag and see what comes out of my mouth.
I'm afraid we are only going to talk about films for this whole episode. I'm
Oh,
afraid.
great. Lucky me. me. For context, me and Matt had a conversation the other day about how terribly uninformed I am about films as a whole. As someone who works with actors every day, I have watched a insulting amount of films.
So,
Not very many at all.
The amount of film references that go completely over my head, I've got no idea.
Shocking.
Yeah.
But you'll be absolutely fine. We'll focus on you. But we'll start off with a question that we ask every guest.
Nice.
Just to ease you in and get a little springboard. Ben, if you'd like to take it away.
Do you have a piece of media, stage, film, TV show that made you?
That sort of inspired you to start,
Oh God. Well, yeah. If we're on plays, James and the Giant Peach at the Octagon Theatre in like 2006, 2007, maybe.
Right, how old were you when you watched that?
6 or 7, I would have been. Yeah, and it's funny. I met with another emerging director a couple of months ago who also grew up in Bolton, and we spoke about that show for about 15, 20 minutes, and both of us had wildly different memories of what it actually was.
Oh, okay.
All I remember is this giant peach, this huge peach, and just thinking that looks amazing.
Yeah,
and I think that was probably my first proper trip to the theatre.
and that sparked your love.
I think so. Yeah, maybe in a more indirect way, but I always think back to that kind of that show, and then obviously there's been others kind of along the way as I've moved into my adult life that have really gripped me and got me. Last year I watched Simon Stone's Medea at International Theatre Amsterdam, and I think that is something that will just sit with me forever.
What was it about that?
Oh God, the way it was all constructed. I mean, I've seen a few things at International Theatre Amsterdam, and I think the way that they make work over there, I think the European models are, I think they work better than the way we make theatre over in this country. They still run rep theatre, so it's big companies with kind of big budgets. So, there was some figures about theatre in Germany a couple of years ago, and each state in Germany has a theatre that's funded better than our national theatre.
Wait, what? Each
state in Germany. I'm not sure how many states there are. But yeah, art subsidy is so much higher in Europe, and it means that they can afford to kind of make these huge, beautiful shows. And what it was with Medea was, it's Greek tragedy, tale as old as time. Medea will kill her children and her ex-husband. But I remember sitting there for the hour and a half that I was watching it and just praying that it wasn't going to happen, that it starts raining ash towards the end, because she burns the house down with her ex-husband and her kids in, and there's this big pile of ash, and she starts sweeping through it, and you know that the kids are under this pile of ash, and I remember thinking, Oh God, I hope they're not under there.
And this is on stage.
Yeah. This huge kind of vast, expansive white stage that looks like it just goes on forever. It was beautiful. I think the way that they construct images in Europe is, incredible. And we see lots of it over here as well. But I think particularly kind of European theatre as a whole, to kind of paint it with that really broad brushstroke is about image making. And they're really great at pulling out themes and content from stories and kind of making it really vast and expansive.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Sick.
It's awesome.
Has a lot of the interest in European theatre come from your time working with Thomas Ostermeier? Or were you already interested in that stuff beforehand?
So was already interested, kind of, and then the job came up with Thomas, and it was like the most incredible experience. One of those directors who you read the books about, and you always go, okay, one day I'll work on that show, I'll watch that show, because I hadn't had much contact with his work before, but I'd read a lot of books about him or interviews with him and that kind of stuff, and reading about his shows, because he runs the Schaubühne in Berlin. And just seeing pictures of his shows, it looks kind of otherworldly. It's beautiful. So the job came up, and I was smitten to book it, and kind of delve into that world and see how he tells those stories, really.
What was that process of booking it like? What did you do to get it?
So there's this newsletter called Open Hire, which anybody who's looking for kind of behind the scenes work in theatre particularly, so whether you're a director, lighting designer, sound designer, stage manager, Open Hire is a weekly newsletter where you subscribe to it, and they just send out jobs, and it's all about kind of making hiring within theatre more accessible and more open, so less people are kind of giving jobs to their mates, and it's kind of opening it up to a wider pool of people. So I applied for the job through that, not expecting to hear anything, and then got an interview with Wessex Grove, the producers, and met those guys, and they were just the nicest people on earth. And one of them interviews where you kind of, you're not just speaking about the work, you're having a laugh and getting to know people, and booked the job, and then spent 3-4 months down in London and had the wildest time. It was incredible, and learned so much from such a kind of plethora of amazing people, inspiring people to kind of be in a rehearsal room with them and just see that magic constantly.
What does assistant directing actually entail when it comes to theatre? Like, how much of the show do you help shape versus sort of shadowing Thomas, and like, what are you actually doing?
I think it depends director to director. Essentially, I think the best way to look at it is that it does what it says on the tin. Like, your job is to assist the director in whatever way that might be. So it can be from kind of helping shape scenes, or remembering individual kind of actors' tracks so they know their entrances and exits, or running lines with the cast, or pulling all the text work out and kind of doing all that text mining to kind of get the facts, the questions, the timeline. Or making coffees, or having that chat in a tea break when someone feels stressed and making sure they're okay. I think it's a job that's about people skills and being able to read a room and speak to people and understand people, I suppose, and trying to reinforce kind of the work of the director as much as possible. And I've been lucky enough to work with 3 incredible directors whose work I hold very highly, and learn a lot from all of them in different ways. And I think, kind of with it being a career, with wanting to be a director myself, that those kind of assisting jobs are really necessary career steps, because as directors, we just cherry pick from the people that we like, and that then makes your process stronger. Obviously me and Matt are in the rehearsal room at the minute, we're working through MOJO, and so many of my notes and so much of my process has evolved over the last year of doing the assisting work. Yeah, because my background comes from, we started Red Brick, my company, 4 or 5 years ago now, and made a plethora of fringe work. But it's only through working in those bigger rooms and being in other directors' rooms that you really kind of learn, I suppose. Because I didn't train as a director, so I kind of just one day decided that I wanted to do it.
Right, yeah. So why directing? Obviously, I feel like acting is the obvious one. and different people walk away from different shows with, taking different things away from it. But the obvious one is doing what they see on stage. Why did you choose directing at the end of the day?
Acting was the obvious one. I wanted to be an actor for the longest time, and wanted to go to drama school and didn't get in. and then went to university. I went to Salford and studied theatre and performance, and had a mixed bag of a time. It was COVID while we were there, so kind of second year we went into lockdown, and that was when I felt like I was really finding my stride with kind of the things that I wanted to do. And I always really enjoyed playing in the room and being in a room full of people, and working out what the thing is, whether it's a play or a scene from a TV series that we were working on or whatever it was. So wanted to act, and then I think ultimately realized, was surrounded by lots of really great actors, and realized that I wasn't good enough, essentially, or didn't feel like I was good enough and didn't feel confident enough in that. Which I think was probably the best thing that ever happened.
Okay.
As opposed to 10 years down the line.
And trying to ride the wave when instinctively I think I knew it wasn't for me. And I think very, very naively just thought, I can't do the thing that I want to do, but I want to stay within these spaces. Yeah. And I thought, let's give directing a go. Because I always enjoyed
telling people what to do and bossing people around.
Yeah, very bossy. But to put it nicely, like shaping stories and telling stories. Yeah, exactly. And was always one of those kids who enjoyed writing little stories or putting on plays that would shit to my parents and stuff like that. And
that's adorable. I really hope some of them are filmed.
Oh God, yeah, there will be somewhere.
I want to get my hands on them.
Why telling those stories?
I think it started from a place of entertainment and getting lost in worlds that aren't necessarily our own worlds or true to us, but could be true in the grand scheme. Had a really great drama teacher at high school, a handful of them. But I remember kind of being given these plays for the first time that I probably shouldn't have had my hands on, or kind of things that I never would have discovered. So reading The Caretaker by Harold Pinter, or Accidental Death of an Anarchist by Dario Fo, or I Got Given 448 by Sarah Kane. And reading these plays and just feeling... feeling something magical, I suppose, which sounds really naff and cheesy. But always really enjoyed the entertainment of it. And then, I suppose kind of started reading more and studying more and fell down these rabbit holes of why do we tell these stories? And I think a lot of the things we do within the industry that we work in, whether it's TV, film, or theatre, is try and understand ourselves and society better through the stories that we tell.
Yeah. So I read on a couple of websites and interviews and things that you focus on telling stories, exploring memory, grief, and human relationships with time. Mm-hmm. Why specifically do you feel drawn to that side of things? Why do you feel like that's an important sort of genre to explore?
I think trying to understand our place in the world, and I think I've always had quite a not deep understanding, but always been interested in mortality and the fact that everything ends. You know, I think that's probably why I like theatre so much, because it ends. You know, it's temporal. It's there for a moment and then it's gone. And that idea of collected experience and all being in that same room, looking in the same direction, and feeling the same things feels really magical.
There is something more. It might have been even an interview with Thomas that I read. I can't remember who it was that I read it recently, where it is more existential as an art form. It reminds me of that
would have been Thomas. Very existential, man.
Classic. He's an intense dude. I like him. Yeah. What's that? The art gallery Whitworth in Manchester, and I went just on my lunch break there, and I can't remember the name of the artist, but they travelled there to create this canvas and do this whole charcoal drawing of 4 different black voices, black people that they knew or had stories to tell, maybe of Windrush. But at the end of the exhibition, say a month or so, that wasn't going to stay there. That was going to be painted over and
Barbara Walker. Barbara Walker is the artist.
I can't hear you.
Barbara Walker.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Artist, yeah.
And I remember just being like deeply moved just by this, creating something so beautiful, but knowing that it would come to an end creates more impact, I think. I hadn't thought until this moment, but yeah, it relates to theatre because end of that night, end of that show, you start it, you never know where it's going to go, and it will never be the same again after you close that. If you're doing it in the way that, so obviously you're directing MOJO at the moment, the freedom and fluidity is creating so much spontaneity within how we're creating it as well, which means that I can feel every single night that we're going to do it is going to be different, which is dangerous but real, really real.
But that's what I think that's what unlocks truth within actors playing with each other. It's acting is the process of listening and responding, and there's you could work for 3 years, 4 years in a rehearsal room trying to drill this play to perfection and have the perfect delivery of each individual line or unit or scene. But then on the night, and anything can happen. It's live. It changes, and what we should be or what I think actors should be training is that ability to be live and play, because things change, and you've got to listen and respond and think on your feet, and stories shift, and that's the way that this art form works. I think you don't get to have that perfect take. It doesn't exist.
No. And if you go looking for it, then you're screwed.
Completely. You can't go in the edit room and go, I'm just going to splice that one because you had a really nice smile.
And you can always tell, particularly if you're working on a show that kind of in night after night, that when someone's had what they think is a really good show the night before, they'll try and emulate it. And they'll never reach it again. And instead it'll change and shift and be beautiful in a completely different way, because you just can't replicate that constantly. I don't think that's possible.
I think as well the audience is such a huge factor in it, because
massively.
I've done shows where the audience has been really quiet, and I've done shows where the audience is so engaging that it just almost gives you another level to go to.
How do you create a dynamic or manage the dynamic between a group of actors coming in, let's say most of them don't know each other, they're going to be in this pressure cooker of a show in rehearsals, and it's intense and emotions are getting involved because of the story and the topics being discussed. How do you as a director manage that sort of social situation so they can be listening and responding and relying and leaning on each other?
Yeah. Acknowledging that we're all grown-ups and we're all fully fledged kind of humans who
I won't say I'm fully fledged yet. I'm still growing.
Yeah, so some of us are still growing.
I'm a little bit flawed.
But it sounds really daft. There's a book by a director called Cate Mitchell, and she has this chapter in it called The Golden Rule about working with actors. And she speaks about sometimes the negative connotations that people have about actors. I'm not saying this myself, but sometimes people might say egotistical or driven or
this all fits with Matt. Yeah,
I
exactly.
knew so. I was like, I need to.
But then she speaks about reframing these things as seeing these people as passionate or wanting or intuitive, inquisitive, and knowing that I think a lot of the people who work within these industries are that. And actually, I think widely there's so much kindness and compassion and empathy within a lot of us, within all people. I think deep down somewhere in some people that we might have to dig a little bit harder at some of them to try and work out where the fuck it is.
Find it.
Get out the JCB.
Yeah. But knowing that I think if you can build a room of people that care and want to do the work and spend that time together making something, then I think it speaks for itself. I don't know what your experience with that is, obviously being my rehearsal room at the minute, coming into a process where I don't think you knew any of the cast beforehand.
No, I mean, I was aware of, I think me and Paddy had done like an R&D ages back, maybe for like a day. He also took a role that I auditioned for and didn't get. So, maybe you knew about that and you were like, okay, well, these guys are going to have some sort of friction. But no, I think my experience so far of you as a director is very caring. You take people aside. I think you're very aware of like your intuition of where people are in a state of mind. Like if I'm feeling frustrated, I think you were aware of it. You came over and waited for me to say, yeah, I'm frustrated. And you're like, yes, I know. Cool. Let's go chat. Things like that. And I think it's really conducive, I think, to having that framework and that flexibility of being able to air concerns. But also same for actors, same for any creator, same for any like healthy human being to be able to go, cool, I can sense where they are right now. I'm where I am right now. How can I meet them in a way that's healthy for both of us? And that's kind of create a dynamic where we are listening and I'm not pushing my agenda or tuning back into myself in like frustration. I'd say you're very, that's why I wanted to ask the question about how you create those, that sort of social safety net.
Yeah, I think it's a game of soft skills, isn't it? And a game of soft skills, people skills. And as someone who I'm quite socially anxious, I hate public speaking.
I thought we'd get you on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, within groups of friends, very, very good at kind of filling a room, but then also in rooms where I don't know lots of people, feel quite shy and reserved. And I think rehearsal rooms can feel like that sometimes, where particularly on day one, where you don't necessarily know everyone and you're committing to do this thing and make this thing together. I'm so anxious before I go in. I'm so anxious, and then luckily you pick the right people and you have a great time, and you the time. There's something that I learned from Thomas particularly was that the time not in the rehearsal room but still with each other is as important as the time in the rehearsal room working on the play. When we were working on the Seagull, we ate together every lunchtime. So we were catered for, and most of us would stay in the green room and just chat and tell stories. And Thomas is very anecdote driven. You can't get through a rehearsal without him going, can I tell an anecdote? And it was like, okay, let's all sit down for an hour and wait for him to tell the story. But he's very good at taking these little nuggets of humanity in these stories and applying them to the play and understanding people's frames of mind and running that caring room and bringing these people together and galvanizing them, which is the job.
How do you, I think, because we've spoken about mental health a fair amount on and off the podcast too. So how do you find a way to manage those networking environments where it is a huge amount of people with like cliques of people who do know each other, and then there's also the people who have no idea what's going on, and there's the people who love that kind of environment. We struggle with it on Departures, I think. We're all there. Just because it's a strange, unnatural situation. How have you been able to navigate that as you started like moving into like the sort of London landscape of theatre?
You find your safety nets, don't you? You find your little pockets, your safe spaces where there's on a press night or on an event or something. I walk in and the first thing I do is I go to the bar and I get a drink. Nice. And that gives me time to look around and be like, okay, I know that person, and I can go and have a conversation about how their dog is, or they were on holiday, let's go and have a chat about that. And you find those little pockets, don't you, where there's people that you can trust and people that you want to speak to. I don't know. I don't think I'm particularly good at infiltrating groups.
Do some recon mission.
But I will if I see a director whose work I admire, or an actor who's been in a show that I've seen. I will pluck up the courage, like a giddy little boy sometimes, to go and say hello and have that conversation, and then more often than not that leads to kind of other avenues of conversation. But but I do get quite nervous and giddy beforehand.
I think as well, like everyone's in the same boat in terms of that, like nervousness. I used to be like, oh, I must be the only one here who feels anxious. Everyone else is fine. And you ask anybody else, and they're like, inside, they're like, yeah, man, I'm shitting it. Like it's nerve wracking. So what I wanted to ask you, so you talked about, obviously, you've gone from Manchester to London. You're in Manchester again doing MOJO. You started off in Bolton, up the Bolton. But how do you feel like growing up in Bolton has influenced your work now?
Oh God. The Octagon was a big place. School trips, seeing work there was always awesome.
What was that? Sorry.
Going on school trips and seeing theatre there was, yeah, it's great to have that, like a regional powerhouse on your doorstep. I don't come from a family that's massively into theatre, or like Dad would always be playing music. We'd watch the odd film here and there, but like we weren't kind of culture beings. You know how you have these families that kind of are always at the theatre or at gigs or festivals. We weren't necessarily that. I think there's something about being from Bolton then coming into Manchester, and it's really not far away at all, is it? It's like a 20-minute train journey.
Yeah.
But having this city with so much culture kind of on the doorstep and striving to that, and I remember being in kind of early years of high school and wanting to come in and go to the cinema or go mooch around the shops in Northern Quarter, or just mooch around and meet people and chat to people. And there's a beautiful play by Simon Stevens called On the Shore of the Wide World. Simon's from Stockport. And I think that play perfectly articulates what it feels like to grow up in a small town, well, a town, particularly a town kind of on the outskirts of Manchester, whether it's in Greater Manchester or just on the outskirts of the city centre, and seeing the horizon and seeing the buildings and feeling the movement of the city, but not quite being able to reach it, and how frustrating that is, you know, being able to see it but and feel it but not quite touch it. Yeah, you should read the play. It's beautiful. I think it articulates it perfectly, and about kind of the vast expanse of the world, but being in that little pocket that's home and wanting to get out of that little pocket.
Do you feel like that gives you a drive and a passion to get out of that pocket?
Yeah, I think so. I really think so. I love Bolton for all of its quirks and yeah, I worked at the Octagon for a good few years as a marketing assistant, and that was only a couple of years ago, and spent more time in Bolton town centre when I was working there than I ever really did growing up. And it's a shame that it's a town that the high street is dead. You know, if you go and watch a show at the Octagon now, you get off the train at 7 o'clock to go to the theatre, and all the shops are shuttered, and there's no bars other than in the vaults, which are in the marketplace. And yeah, it's such a shame that a town that has this crown jewel of the Octagon, this place of culture, and now the cinema as well in the marketplace, where they do the Bolton Film Festival, I think it is. It's a shame that the high street is completely dead. And you know, whether that's because of more people moving to retail online, or places like the Trafford Centre where you can go and park for free and go through all the shops at once. Yeah, the town centre feels bleak, which is sad. So yeah, maybe it does give you that drive to want to go somewhere else, because I'd far rather be walking through Manchester than Bolton town centre.
True.
But it has its quirks, and you know, you can't get a Cars pasty in Manchester. If you've never had a Cars pasty.
What's a Cars pasty?
I've had a Cars pasty.
How good is a Cars pasty?
They are quite
What
good.
is a Cars pasty?
It's just a Bolton exclusive pasty.
Yeah.
What's in it?
It's Greg's, but better.
Yeah,
It's
well,
just-
that's the thing. Greg's is rubbish. That's why.
In comparison,
Greg's
yeah.
is rubbish. Greg's
Yeah.
it's the McDonald's of the pasty and baked goods world.
Oh, yeah.
It's shit.
Yeah, it's bad.
If you want something artisan, you go to Bolton and you get
Artisan.
you get a Cars or a Green Elches.
Bolton Opscon actually sell cars pasties.
We do.
in the like stores. What are they called? Like the
the
bars.
the
where you can get a drink
I'm
before
still
a show.
confused. What are in the pasties?
Meat and potato. It's just a pasty.
Meat and potato, steak, cheese and onion, cheese and jalapeno.
Cheese and
It's like I'm a salesman.
That sounds banging.
That cheese and
Yeah,
jalapeno
and
is a bit.
it's so funny whenever I meet up with my friends from Bolton and we go for a few beers. I think it's rare that we get past beer number 4 without speaking about pasties.
Very valid. They are good pasties.
They're so good.
Just sort of moving on to the future and what you hope your career sort of has in store for yourself. Do you have ambitions to break into TV and film, or are you sticking with theatre? Where do you want to end up?
Yeah. I'm scared of TV and film.
Fair, yeah.
Maybe not scared, but it feels like a completely alien world to me. That not that I'm not interested in it, but I feel very full and content with theatre, and that's the thing that makes me happy. I've got some friends who are wonderful filmmakers. A really good friend of mine called Beck Cooley is a kind of up and coming. I want to say avant-garde, but he's not. He just has a very kind of interesting visual language, and that kind of film interests me, where it's not particularly narrative driven, but more about a world that's being built, and using that visual language and having the kind of audio to go with that, and make these kind of quite sensory snippets, I suppose. That would interest me, but I think kind of long term, I want to be in the theatre world, and I think the ultimate goal is to kind of one day be attached to a regional theatre and make work, particularly in the Northwest, supporting Northwest voices, whether they're directors or actors, stage managers or designers, and nurturing that ecosystem. I think, because I think it's so important. I think we're seeing more and more of it now, actually, where people are coming back to regional theatre. You look at Gary Oldman, who's doing Crap's Last Tape in York, where he did his first ever performance on stage as the cat in Dick Whittington in something mad like 1979, I think. I could be completely misquoting that and making him seem way older than he is.
Mad.
You fact checking it?
Oh, I could do. Gary Oldman.
You should do, because otherwise poor Gary Oldman will be very unhappy with me.
Guys watches this podcast all the time.
But I think we're hopefully seeing a resurgence of that, where regional houses are getting fuller and fuller. Hopefully, I think we're back after COVID. Box office sales are back up, and that's great because it nourishes regional artists, which being one myself is important. Was I right or was I wrong?
1979, he was 20 years old.
I was right. That's good.
Nice one. That's impressive.
Yeah.
With that sort of nurturing aspect, is that why it's important? Like why you created so you had Brick by Brick. That was one of the first sort of stuff that you did with Red Brick as well. And then you also went back to your uni, Salford Uni, to direct the second years. Why is it that you have, is that sort of just a value that you have to go back and help those starting out to reach the place that you are now?
I would consider myself still very much starting out, I suppose. So it's kind of working with the people who you're up and coming with, I suppose. And myself and Tilly, who I started the company with, both met at Salford Uni on the course we were doing. And we got asked back to run some workshops working with the students, which was great. And, particularly after not being out for long yourself, after not graduating too long ago, it feels weird going back and...
Yeah, that imposter.
Yeah, massively.
What do I know? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's... you learn a lot quite quickly doing the work that you do, don't you? And I think particularly universities, I noticed from when I was there, I don't think a lot of the people who teach there particularly are working currently within the industry, particularly at the level that you'll be working at when you get out. So
I found that in college as well.
Yeah. So I think it's useful... Because don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go in and change their world or shake up their whole. At least I don't think I am going to shake up the whole kind of outlook on the craft or the work. But I think it's good to know that there is possible progression. And coming out of university or drama school, more than likely you'll probably end up working on the fringe scene for a while and making that work. And that's the work that I love, because you've got to beg, steal and borrow, and you've got limited resources and limited time. And it's about pulling together a group of people with a shared ideology and wanting to make something. And I think that's one thing that we offered. I've got a lot of love for kind of emerging artists or emerging talent, because that's the level that I see myself at, and they're the people who I enjoy making the work with. I get just as much joy making work at the Kings as I did making work with Cate Blanchett at the Barbican.
I think you're calling me a king then. I was like, oh no, that was the ego part you had to go down for a second. And then the insecure part came out straight after. How are you doing for the time?
Got like 5 minutes left.
Cool. Okay, sweet. Go on.
Should we chat about MOJO for the last 5 minutes?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so just really quickly, just because I don't actually know that much about the play, and I know that a lot of people watching and listening won't know a lot about the play. What is it about? Where is it?
Can you tell us it in your best Cockney accent?
There is not a chance in hell. I can barely do my own accent, let alone Cockney accent. 1950s rock and roll, Soho. It's set in a nightclub called Ezra's Atlantic Nightclub, and we see 5 kind of plastic gangsters locked in a room trying to take on the world after this tragic thing that's happened in the club. It's a story about lads being lads and being afraid of what's coming for them, and also afraid of who they are. You know, it's as much the in-betweeners as it is a Guy Ritchie film. It's
brilliant.
Yeah, it's these lads all taking the piss out of each other because they don't really know where to place their emotions. It's fast and funny. We've got a fucking ace cast. It's going to be a good one.
And it's on at the King's Arms in Salford.
Yeah, King's Arms, Salford.
Dates?
13th to the 24th of May.
Yep, correct.
Get your tickets.
Yeah, get your tickets. It's going to be a good one.
Get tickets.
Come and see Matthew Kahn on stage.
Yes. Trying to do my, hopefully staying away from Australian accent and doing my Cockney accent.
Oh God, has it slipped into Australian?
What was the reason that you chose MOJO?
Oh God, it's one of those plays that you read and it's just so hilariously funny, but also has that kind of darkness and dryness there as well, and that level of not knowing who you are and trying to work out who you are. Those flecks of mortality that run through it and that imminent danger. But I think ultimately John was someone who I've worked with before, John O'Neill, who's going to be in the show, but I'm co-producing with his company Up Here Productions. John came to me with the play and said, we've got that gap, because we were speaking about other plays, and he said, reread MOJO and let's see what you think. And I reread it and fell in love with it again. And I think without John's adamance that he wanted to do it, I probably would have been too afraid personally, because it's a big meaty play that's exciting and fun, but also scary. And the way that we're working the play, it's kind of in the round, super tight. There's nowhere to hide.
No.
No, it sounds mint. I'm so excited to come and watch it.
It's literally like it starts. It's something shot from a bullet, metaphorically, and it just keeps going and just keeps expanding and getting crazier and crazier and more intense. More intense. It's it's daunting, but that's the best reason to be doing it. How much time do we have time for a couple more questions?
We are literally wrapping it up now.
No.
We can do a couple of bonus questions in a minute.
Bonus questions in a minute.
We'll do a couple of bonus questions in a minute.
Oh, excellent. Okay,
perfect.
Cool. All right, bonus round. Go,
bonus
Matthew.
round, Ben. Go on, you can ask.
This is rapid fire.
Right.
Okay.
So I'll ask.
Rapid fire.
So working with Ostermeier,
did
you have a lesson that you learned from that you now implement in your work now?
Yes, trust. He works with the cast in a way that's very free, and almost everything is generated from the cast, their personal stories, and he's really good at kind of weaving in their personal lives into the story itself and helping them understand who the characters are. He doesn't. Everything is generated from them, and he's constantly in conversation and collaboration with them. Running that room.
if your directing style was a pasty, which one would it be?
Cheese and jalapeno.
That's a banging
Cheese and
one.
jalapeno.
Yeah,
Slightly
yeah.
fiery, but also comforting.
It's smooth, but it's got
alright.
spice to it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Ollie, your rapid fire question?
Ultimately, what is Red Brick Theatre's ethos and where do you hope to take it?
Oh God, trying to make theatre an art form that people want to go and see within the Manchester scene. I've got friends who are filmmakers, graphic designers, fashion designers, artists, and they all go to each other's work because it's cool and they all go and have a big fun night out, and people don't think the theatre is cool. The theatre is cool. The theatre is
Theatre's
cooler
mint.
than anything else, and I want to try and let people know that.
Amazing.
And advice for aspiring artists.
Make the work. Do it.
Just do it.
Do it. It sounds shit and it sounds obvious, but there's no point sitting around waiting for it to happen. Go out and do it. Make it and make the mistakes and learn from the mistakes and get it wrong and be skint and keep trying.
Amazing.
Man.
Brilliant.
You know,
Thank you so
that's
much. That's
incredible.
been one of my
guys.
favourite episodes
you,
that we've
man.
ever done.
Good.
That's
Good.
incredible.
Nice.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Come see
That
MOJO.
is-
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe, do the thing. It'd be good. And come see the show. We need
A wrap.
tickets.
Wow, yeah.
Ah.